Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. Today, I'm excited to have Jon Swire all the way from California. He's a leading expert in multifamily sales, but not only that, he has his MBA. I believe your MBA is from UCLA, and you have a BS in engineering from Northwestern. He's a teacher, he's a mentor, he's an author, he's an inventor, an investor, and he also obviously helps broker deals as well. I don't know what he seems like a renaissance man in our industry with over $1 billion of closings. I wanted to thank Jon for coming on the show this week.
Thanks for having me, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what's interesting is I love that you're a teacher because it seems like the barrier to entry in our business is probably some of the lowest in any business, right? Where you just basically have to do somewhere from 50 to 100 hours of a class. I guess in today's world, you probably can even do it online, not even seeing anybody, clicking on some buttons, almost like it's AI or a bot can help you do that. And then you got to take one test and then pay a little bit of money, and then all of a sudden now people's lives are in your hands. But you teach a class at UCLA. It's a real estate investment analysis, and it seems like that's a great thing. That's probably that 40, I think it's a 40-hour class over 11 weeks or whatever. That seems like that's even so much more than what anyone else would even need to do to get licensed.
Yeah, I started teaching back in 2006. When I first started teaching, it was 12-week, 40-hour class. You probably had three types of people who were in the class: people who were there for a certificate for real estate to get into the business, people who were there because they needed it to be here for their student visas, and then the third group of people were investors. And the goal of that class is to teach people how to invest in real estate with confidence so they can use real estate to secure their financial future. Basically, real estate's an ATM machine, right? It's not that different, if you will, than a stock or a bond or some other investment vehicle. It's just a little bit more complicated. And investing in real estate's a lot of work. It's a lot harder, obviously, than hopping online on your E-Trade account or your Charles Schwab account and picking up some NVIDIA stock this morning.
I do have a lot of NVIDIA stock, so that's not a bad thing, but I got lucky, right? Because I've been in it for 5 years and I didn't pay that much to it, and all of a sudden it's worth a lot of money. And I guess that I'm going to say that slightly dumb luck, right? I did a little bit, but you would never know what that was going to be. I mean, but that's the whole issue, like in real estate, is that I don't think people know. They feel like it's $1 million listing, right? It's all the other shows, HDTV, oh, the fix or flip. It's how hard can it be? They're doing it on television. It's not hard until it becomes hard, right? Where the cycles change in an up market, right? If you buy at this point and the market goes up, you don't have to be that great of a flipper to be able to make money, but that's not what reality is, and it's not long-term reality. So how do you, without putting the fear in God in people, how do you basically try to teach people about that it is hard and what they need to do to prepare to do it as an investor?
Yeah, sure. First, I'm going to tell you, I personally think we're recording this now in September of 2025. It's an amazing time to be a buyer right now. It's a terrible time to be a seller. Prices are down, especially in our market, but across the country, 30 to 35% from their peak in 2021. There are no buyers in our market in LA right now. It is an amazing time to be a buyer. You have the pick of the litter. Interest rates seem to be trending down, but it is a great time if you are a long-term investor and holder in real estate to jump back in and reload. My goal isn't to scare people away from investing in real estate. Obviously, it's how I make money brokering deals. That being said, I want people to go in with their eyes wide open. There's kind of two kinds of clients I deal with, right? Those who want to know how the sausage is made and those who don't care. They just want it to taste good. So those clients fall into two categories. The ones who come to me, I'm their real estate rabbi, if you will. I guide them. They trust me. I say, look, here's 3 deals that I think could work for you. Here are the pros and cons of each. I would choose deal B. They say, great, let's go with that. I've got other clients who really want to get into it. They want to understand how to use the Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. They want to understand discounted cash flows. And I love those clients too, because for me, math is my love language. Okay, I have an engineering degree. I have an MBA. I love math. It is the way I like to communicate with people. So having those second level conversations with clients is a lot of fun. I have some clients I've sold 15 to 20 buildings to over the course of 3 or 5 years. Those are really fun conversations for me.
So again, you're smarter than most. I have my undergraduate degree from Washington University, and I have a PhD, and I have an MBA from Hofstra University. But I got into real estate so I don't have to deal with pivot tables and spreadsheets. But that is the beauty of our industry, right? I think that the skill set that you have of spreadsheets, of math is a good background to have when especially in the investor world, right? Maybe it's less important if someone's buying a house that they're using for themselves, right? Because that's I try to tell my residential people that's not really an investment. It's really the house that they want to live in, right? So you don't run an ROI on the kitchen or the bath in a house that you're predicting that you're going to live in from 7 to 15 years or more, because you should really have the bathroom or kitchen that you want, right? And make it in the style that you want. It's 100% different when you're buying apartment buildings that you're trying to get a return on investment and trying to meet certain numbers because you're going to have a mortgage and you have to pay that, and you're with accelerated depreciation. It does become much more of a math play. And does it, how much can you go to, and what depending on interest rates and all that. So it's a clearly important thing. It seems like that you have the skill set that you're able to guide people using math into, this is from menu A, this is from menu B, and you feel pretty comfortable about that. I would say that most agents, if they were talking about those things, would be talking out of their butt maybe, and could potentially have issues because they might not know as much as. Do you feel that's your secret sauce? Is that you know how math works more than other people and can guide people?
Look, I think you gotta figure out where you're supposed to be. And two, I think people need to stay in their lane. There's a lot of residential agents who think they can do what we do, and they get hired to do the things we do. And to be frank with you, I don't understand, why would you ever hire an out of area agent who sells homes to sell an apartment building for you? And we see this all the time, and it's because the seller has a personal relationship with that agent. But that agent isn't a subject matter expert. They're not competent in what you're hiring them to do. Just if I have somebody who comes to me who wants to sell their home, I'm going to refer it out to somebody like you, Dan, because you're the subject matter expert. And just probably if you had somebody who wanted to make an investment, you'd say, hey, I'm not the right guy, but I know a great person for you. Let me introduce you to Jon. So I do think having that skill set is very important. I think you've got to find the right people to represent you. These are typically the biggest investments and checks people are ever going to write in their investing career. In LA alone, you need a minimum of $500,000 to $700,000 to put down on the property. That's a lot of money for the average person. It means you probably have a net worth of $3 million. You've been successful and you've done a lot of smart things to get to that point. So you definitely want to align yourself with the right ecosystem. One of the things that I've done that is a little bit, I don't want to say special to me, but something that I think is really beneficial to my clients is I've created an ecosystem for them. So they plug into that ecosystem, to the property management company, to the GCs, to the insurance vendors. So they don't have to think about anything. What they need to know is that I'm their one point of contact. They trust me, and they trust that I'm going to make sure and quarterback that everything gets done properly. And that takes a lot of the stress out of the transaction off of them, because now they know, okay, I have an advocate in my corner who's looking out for me. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to sell them one building. I want to sell them 5 or 10 buildings over the next 15 or 20 years. And I want them to refer me on. So our incentives are aligned, if you will, to make sure that they have a great experience.
I definitely agree with what you say. So obviously I'm mostly residential. I dabble in commercial only because of exactly what you said, where people are like, they have a good relationship with me and they want me to help them with something. And clearly multifamily under 5 units is still generally a residential market. You're talking with major. But from time to time, one of my agents is working on like a 75 unit complex. But the good thing about it was they're these investors are global names. It would be names that people you would know them. And but they did the buying, and so they brought us in really at this point to rent all the places out. That's also that's a little different, right? Because being the exclusive agent for 90 units in our market is residential. So you definitely, as I take on commercial things, a lot of it I let them know what my abilities are. And also when we do need to have a subject matter expert, we have to bring that person in because I don't want to get over my skis, right? Because that makes me look bad and potentially could hurt my clients. Staying in your lane, I think, is super important for sure, because you can't be all things to all people. So I think that's important to know what your boundaries are. And then, like you said, have a Rolodex of people. So when someone's trying to get small commercial and residential, I can help them with, oh, here are the contractors, here are the management companies. Starting to get like where you have of like hundreds of units and hundreds of millions of dollars of buildings, it's certainly something that you want to make sure that you have the right person to do that. What's interesting is you said that right now there are no buyers in California, that we're in a big country, so there's different markets. New York is still it's still on the up and up. And actually we keep surpassing, what's crazy about having an up market is that people keep raising their prices, and it's year after, and then they raise it even more and they raise it even more. And so maybe now things are sitting a little bit more than they were 2 years ago, but only a little bit more, but it's also at heavily inflated pricing. So if you looked at what historic pricing is, they're absurd. So I would say in New York, it's still a seller's market. People are all, I think the smart buyers are waiting for a little burst of the bubble to get back in, but I think it also depends. But that's so every market's a little different, and markets go up and down, right? They don't just go up and they don't go down. It's an ebb and flow. And I think you said it best. You talked about long term, right? So those are probably the clients that you prefer, because it's just like Nvidia, right? How do you know that today is going to be, you buy today, tomorrow it might be down, and there is going to be a burst of the market. But just like real estate, is Nvidia a company that for 5 years, 10 years is going to be a company that's going to want to be owned? And it's the same thing with the projects that you're working on. So a BS in engineering, that from top level school, how do you explain that, what you did there in that transition, and to that you being excited about being in the real estate world?
I never used my engineering degree. I just had an aptitude for math and science. And one of the conditions of me playing football in college was my mom said, "Hey, you're going to go get an engineering degree." So that was the trade-off. I fell into real estate back, and I was actually an investor before I was an agent. I bought my first fourplex in 2001. And in my career at the time, I was selling software, which I hated. And I realized it wasn't for me. And I had an epiphany. You probably had this epiphany, most of your viewers have. I didn't want to work forever. So I looked around and I said, what career can I do where I don't have to work forever? Who are the people who don't have to work forever? They're the people who have a way to generate passive income, right? Money that comes into them even when they're not working or they're playing golf or they're on vacation. And what's the one asset class that generates passive income? It's real estate. So I bought my first apartment building. It was a 4-unit property. I bought it for $290, and I ended up selling it 9 months later for $390, and I did the 1031 exchange. And that was the start of me climbing the property ladder. And about a year later, I transitioned into becoming an agent. It was something, again, I also knew I wanted to make a lot of money, right? I always tell my students, I say, if you want to make $150,000 a year, don't take a job where you can only make 80. I've always wanted to make 7 figures a year, and I've been very blessed. I worked on Wall Street, I sold software, and then the third career at that time would have been real estate. And I was actually at Remax when I started my career back in 2002. And I was in the right place at the right time. Like you, I've been very lucky. I've always been prepared to take advantage of those opportunities when they come up, but I've been lucky. I've been in the right place at the right time, and I've been prepared to act on those opportunities when they were put in front of me. From that standpoint, the real estate world has blessed me.
Saying luck is something that I'm not as much. So I think being blessed and being, yes, you do need to be in the right place at the right time, but sometimes you make your own luck too by putting yourself in that right
100%.
position. So an example is a friend of mine used to be, he was a sportscaster for a local television station in New York, and it was a non-union station. And he needed help with somebody carrying the tripod. Then he needed help with somebody holding the microphone and asking questions of people. My first interview was of Lynn Swan at the NFL Cadillac Classic. And so it was at the Pro-Am. So what happens is the pro celebrities play with the golfers, right? And my question to him, my first question ever in the sports media was I asked Lynn Swan, I said, how do you reconcile that when you play football on Sunday, you're the man? But when you're playing golf on television, it's not your sport and you're not the man. How do you reconcile with that? And he goes, that's a great question. He looks straight in the camera and he goes, after my round of golf, I take a shower. I put my 5 Super Bowl rings on my fingers, and I go, you are an athlete, you are an athlete, you are an athlete. And so through that, I have been in locker rooms, I've been for World Series and All-Star games and multiple sports, golf, baseball, football. So people are like, you're so lucky. And I'm like, lucky? I donate my time to this to the cause, right? I didn't get paid for it. It was a hobby and fun. So while it was lucky, of course, but it was also a commitment that I had to helping my friend do his producing his sports, which clearly was something that I enjoyed as well. So in that example, I made my luck in the sense, but I also had to put in. I, you're certainly right because you can do all the right things and bad things can happen, right? There are earthquakes, so you can own a building. There are fire, right? California, Maui. There's a lot of bad things can happen when you could have all the math working, and that you can, and then bad things happen that are so out of your control. So the good luck is that you don't have those things, and that the market does rise, and you buy something. You're able to do the things that you're able to make the math work and then sell it. So I think it's a combination of everything. You just have to, that's what, isn't that what practice is, where you block and tackle in practice so that when the game happens that you're able, that's your football analogy, right? But you have to practice because practice helps makes perfect.
Listen, they say luck is where hard work meets opportunity, right? So a lot of people, for better or for worse, when the opportunities present themselves, they're not prepared. They haven't done the work up to that point to be prepared. We see that a lot with other agents in our business.
Isn't that with a lot of sports, right? Where when the repetition of practice, so when game day happens, your body is not nervous, you're calm, you're collected, you're prepared, right? You're prepared for what's to happen. Lawyers do that, right? When they're in court cases and you're presenting in front of the jury and the judge, it's not your first time doing it, so you're able to go with the flow. And I think you having all 500 apartment buildings, right? You've seen a lot. And obviously, things can be every time there's probably new things that happen, but you're able to pivot because you've been in situations. So it's not, oh my God, what are we going to do? You put your thinking cap on and you think of what are the 3 outcomes what are the 3 ways that we could attack this problem? And then you successfully attack the problem.
100%. Yeah.
I know that you've said there's no free lunch in real estate. That I think that has to do with your book. Because when you watch all of these shows, especially in California, $1 million listing, I figured if I need sushi, why would I ever go to a restaurant? I'm just going to go to the open houses, right? Where it's, oh my God, look, there are parties, there are dancers, it's unbelievable. Explain to me a little bit what you're meaning in real estate with that there's no free lunch.
Those guys, all those groups and teams are in my office, actually, an office out of the Beverly Hills office of the agency. So Mauricio, David and James, a lot of those TV shows originated out of our little ecosystem, if you will.
Hey, listen, I love watching them because why wouldn't you? It is great entertainment, right? And certainly, again, they're not lucky. They built it. They invest their time in it. They deserve all the accolades for making people want to watch those shows. So that's the same thing. It's not luck. It was hard work and dedication. But yes, you're with the agency, so it's certainly one that, you know, they all do a good job. But if I want sushi, I'm probably going to have to go pay for it at one of your nicer restaurants because
Uh,
it. But explain that philosophy.
which philosophy?
The no free lunch.
Oh, look, I just think I had an opportunity years ago to go speak with one of these big real estate guys and who go around the country and they do the raw seminars and they try and tell people that with bad credit and no money, you can become a real estate millionaire. And I'm like, that's a bunch of BS. Okay. If you've got bad credit and you have no money, you're not somebody I'm going to work with. And I tell clients all the time, there's no free lunch in real estate. We need money and good credit to create the income stream you want to create. Now, you can start out with very little money and we can make a plan. But this idea that you're going to go start doing all these great things. I used to speak when I first got started years ago at the real estate investment clubs, where you had a lot of people running around who don't have any assets, they don't have any income, they don't have any credit, and they're what are called bird dogging deals, right? They're trying to find a deal and put it in contract and wholesale it to somebody like you or me or another client, where they, back then it might have been for $15,000. Today, depending on how juicy the deal is, it could be 150K. We've had clients double escrow deals where they've taken 150K pop just for finding a deal, which kudos to them. What that does, and when you make that money, that generates cash. Then you want to generate cash flow. Okay, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. He's invested in a lot of real estate deals over the last few years. They haven't generated any passive income or consistent cash flow, but they're generating pops of cash after 3 or 4 or 5 year hold periods. I said, look, the next step is now you've aggregated 6, 7, 800K. It's sitting in your bank. Now let's go buy an apartment building where we can get a 5 or 6% cash on cash return. So now all of a sudden you're getting $4,000 a month in cash flow coming into your bank. So that's the transition, if you will, from people making cash, right, to generating cash flow and generating that consistent passive income they can use to pay for their kids' college tuition and then eventually retire on.
Yeah. So the other thing which is interesting is we're both older. We got some gray. I got a lot more gray than you do. You're doing a good job keeping it less gray. But so this was your third career. This is my third career. And I was in sales and marketing. My first job out of college, I sold insecticides and herbicides in actually Walnut Grove, Minnesota, a little house on the prairie. That was actually my sales territory. And then I was involved in bottled water and coffee. And then I worked for a solar company, went out of business. And I was like, what am I going to do when I grow up? My wife is, you should be a real estate agent. But I think doing it when you're older makes us better because we've rented, we've done leases before, we've owned houses, or so it's like, how am I supposed to get people to do the things that I haven't done, right? So it's certainly easier. And so in doing this as well, during my 8 years, I did buy in a townhouse. So I bought a fixer-upper townhouse that we fixed up. We signed a lease, and before the person even moved in, there was a flood. So I had to deal with the insurance company and had to do a $150,000 flood claim before my tenant even moved in, and then set it back up, and then rent it and do all that. I'm lucky because we're able to get 8% return on investment from cash flow, and then I also got lucky because the market value of the unit went up over 25%. It was actually more than that, went up a couple $100,000. So I'm getting it on both ends. I'm lucky, but at least it puts me in the place that I'm able to speak to my clients about what an investment, right? I had flood right away. I couldn't get the tenant in dealing with all those things. You have to experience those things. And sometimes it's good that it happened to me, not just my clients, because I become more empathetic and probably better a mentor for my clients as well from those things happening to me.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. One of the things that I've been doing is I coach real estate agents to learn how to create referral business out of their existing residential client base, right? So you have a ton of clients who love you. They bought a house. What's the next thing they want to do? These people want to figure out how they can create this passive income stream to retire. They know they should own real estate. So you make this introduction from yourself to me or your local Jon Swire, and you generate referral fees for you. But I tell these agents, look, In addition to you encouraging your clients to invest, you should be doing the same thing. Walk the walk. Okay. There's nothing more powerful than when I sit with a client. I've been investing for 25 years. I own 18 apartment buildings, over 200 units. My buildings in 2022 threw off $35,000 a month in passive income. I have their attention. They snap right to attention when I tell them that. They're like, okay, this guy knows his shit. This is what I want to do. I found the guy who can help shepherd me into the chosen land.
And we're not selling crypto and all those other things that people are attacking us and always sending emails and, oh, you can. So you talked about the snake oil salesman, right? That was before, where they're going to flip a deal before they're going to get into contract. They're going to flip it because that's all they can do. It's very risky. But like you said, I think you absolutely need to walk the walk. The other thing, so it's interesting. So I do have real estate. So you'll like this one. I'm smart enough to know that there are people better than me in this business, and some of them happen to be my clients. So I have a client who he came to me and was thinking about being an agent. I'm like, why do you want to be an agent? He goes, because I own 20 properties and I'm buying and I'm selling. I'm 1031. I'm like, you don't need to. Why do you want to do that? I'm like, why don't we work together? So I put, and I'm talking about $3 million properties in Greenwich, Connecticut, and we're doing one, then we're doing another, then we're buying something. He's very active, and then he has to rent places, right? So I basically was like, we can come up with a structure of what commissions you feel are that I earn from those, not what the historic commissions would be. And so he said, that sounds good. So we got work together, and it's a ton of business. And so my banker doesn't ask me what percent I'm getting. They just want to know how much money is being deposited into the bank. So as long as I'm putting money into the bank, that's all that they care about. So I am extremely flexible, because when you're starting to get massive amounts, you're like, I don't need to make what a traditional percent would be, because it's all about the money. It's not about the percent, it's about money. But one thing that I've learned from him is where he's buying in mid-state New York, a firehouse. The city's selling a firehouse. No pole, though. That's the only disappointing thing. There's no fire pole. The plan is to turn the downstairs into a restaurant, and then do 4 apartment buildings upstairs. And the property is like 1.9, right? $1.9 million and pre-work. And the guy has another property on the block. So he has his program. He's a very smart guy. So what do? I'm investing with him. So my wife and I are going to be 25% investors in the property, because I see his spread. I'm not the spreadsheet guy, but I see he has his spreadsheet. I see his track record. And what better way for me to be able to also show my client that I value what he's doing and I understand what he's doing. And it's actually made him change a little bit what he's thinking, because with his money and his avenue to borrow, he can only do X. And what he's really good at is being an operator and like finding these things. And like you said, getting consortiums of people together where you pool money so that you then can buy more. And so he obviously deserves a management fee and all that for putting the deal together. But so I'm trying to create what you've talked about, where let's see what happens with this one. I think his parents are investing, a friend. So we're getting a team of people together, and then let's see how that goes. And then we can do the other one. And he's so smart with accelerated depreciation, so much so that I had to go back to my accountant, and we had to say, why aren't we doing these things? Because and I use the top accounting firm, and the issue is they basically take what I give them and basically put it in so that we can file with the government. And so it's made me better and allowed me to advocate better for my clients, where you just don't want an accountant that's just reactively taking your numbers and submitting. You want there are tax laws. How do you proactively use the tax codes? And you talked about it through 1031 and all these other things. How do you make it even better? Because the government does give you incentives to invest and try to rebuild certain communities. And there's a benefit from a tax perspective. And I'm now becoming even better by getting involved with my clients, which then might be able to get this consortium, so that when people come to me and say, oh, we have money, we want to invest, they don't actually have to buy a property. They can buy a percent of an LLC that's getting them the same thing. So is that a little bit what your class is and about what you're discussing?
Listen, you're referring to a traditional syndication. The syndication is a great place for people to start who don't have enough money to take direct ownership, or they don't have the desire to be the direct owner. And they want to get portfolio diversification. Instead of putting 500K into one deal, they can put 250 into two or 150 into three. They might choose to put some money in an apartment building in Southeast, Charleston, and some money in an office deal up in the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, 100% syndications are great. Your operating partner, the syndicator, he's going to do some GP split and take some asset management fee, etc. But that's fair because you guys are passive investors and he's doing all the work. I started doing syndications years ago with some of my friends. I called them benevolent. They're benevolent syndications and I'm a benevolent dictator.
Yes.
I was doing them at par. I wasn't watering them down because they're good buddies of mine. But I also said, look, I have zero desire for your input on these deals because I'm the subject matter expert. And as I started doing more of them, the GP split went from 100-0 to 95-5 to 90-10, depending on the amount of work required on my part. Because some of the deals we've done are quite labor intensive. And I'm like, look, if I'm going to do all this, I've got to accrue some additional benefit for the added effort.
Yep. So those are things that we're doing, and it's learned by doing, right? And getting involved and having and being in the game with investment. So I think that's going to make me. I'm hoping it's obviously a profitable thing, but I think even if it broke even, I would be learning and being able to be a better investor, advocate for clients by just doing that. But so I do think that you need to take risks. How are we supposed to ask our clients to or expect them to take these risks when we don't take these risks ourselves? You talked about investment. So clearly everyone needs to, it's about diversification. Diversification is so important. So I like that you talked about diversifying in different classes in different parts of the country because as we know, there are ebbs and flow. The other thing about real estate agents, what I found that two things that real estate agents don't do enough of is have health care and a pension and a retirement account, right? Everyone thinks they're not going to get ill. And actually, you can even add in disability insurance because I would think that the odds of getting disabled are before like 70 are much higher than they are of dying, actually. But nobody thinks like that. But people don't really in the real estate world, right? Because we're all independent contractors and there's not a match, a 401k match and all that other stuff. But I think those are the things that a lot of the people in our industry don't do because they rather have a nice vacation and drive a nice car.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree. Ironically, I have disability insurance, I have health insurance, and I opened up a SEP years ago. I thought opening a SEP, which is a self-employed pension. It's the IRA, if you will, for people like us for 1099s. My accountant had been on me for a few years, and at this point I was making 7 figures a year, and he's, John, you got to fund your SEP. And I'm like, no, and it finally clicked when I was 30. I'm like, I get it now. I can put $52,000 in the SEP, whatever the number was back then. And that's a tax write-off. 50% of that immediately saved me 26K in taxes, for example. So that's one of the first things I tell everybody, fund your SEP every year. Okay, fund your SEP. And then once you're done funding your SEP, I'm a hard asset guy. I've never been a watch guy. I've never been a expensive car guy. I like to have hard assets that generate passive income. My wife and I have been very blessed. We live a very great lifestyle, but we own a lot of hard assets. We want to own hard assets. I think when the zombies come, I can trade housing for food.
Yeah, no, you probably can. Again, so what I like about that is you have to choose the class of that makes sense for you and your family, right? But I've always been one to my first two careers, I always had 401k, so it was always something that I did. But every single year I have a real estate set up, and it's so as the owner of my LLC, you're able to, and I'm 56 now, so I'm allowed to do, there is a catch-up provision. But you're allowed to even put more money in because there's catch-up, there's regular, and then there's also I can declare profits and put that money in tax deferred, right? So the profits are, I'm the only member of my LLC. So if I declare profits, it goes to me, which basically shields money. And which is interesting because you can actually set those up to use those to invest in real estate too. I happen to have them in stock, stocks, but I think you could set them up in a different way. But
A lot of my money in my SEP, it's in a self-directed SEP. It's invested in real estate deals.
exactly, because you know what? That's what you're the most comfortable in. If that's what you feel you're diverse, if that's how you diversify. But for people that aren't, and I know a lot of people who don't start with that. That is probably, I think the John and I being a little older can say those are the things that you need to invest in yourself and for your retirement, because the government gives you such a benefit to do that, right? Where if it's 50% tax that you say, plus all the earnings, so my NVIDIA that I do have in that account was accumulated and accumulated without taxes. So clearly, of course, you do if it's a Roth IRA, right? You've paid the tax already. You don't have to pay it when you take it out. But you can't always just use that. But again, if you have enough money set aside and then you have to pay taxes when you pull it out at retirement age, it's certainly better than the amount it's going to have accrued tax free, and then you'll pay it a little bit later. Death and taxes are certainly certainties currently in our country, and you can't really stop that. But again, those are the way that you can position yourself to be in the strongest place when down the road. So it's interesting because you said you want to do things where you don't have to work. I just feel that I don't know how much passive income you could have that you actually would hang up the laces, right? Hang up the shoes and or the boxing glove, because it seems like you're someone that wants to be in the game and teaching, and it's fun and you have a value. So it seems it's a career that you can do when you're 70 and 80, right? Because it's okay. So you don't have to have as many, but you can still, or have a team, but it's still something that you can always do.
Look, they say most people have a job. There's a few people who are lucky who have a career. And there's a few people who are really lucky who have a calling. Real estate is a calling for me. I love what I do. If I won the lottery, I would still do real estate. When there's blood in the water and we got a deal going, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm a deal junkie. And I love helping clients understand that they can start out with a certain amount of money and retire a millionaire, because a lot of people don't see how they're going to put their kids through college and then have money left over. So that for me is very exciting. And I love teaching. I love being up in front of people. I still teach at UCLA Extension. We're doing a big 2-day seminar, a live seminar in Hollywood in January. So I love doing all these things, being in front of people, educating people, having that light bulb go on, and like that aha moment, it's all worth it.
Well, again, as we wrap, I want to thank you, John, for coming on. Can you let people know how they can reach out to you on your website or
Sure.
Instagram and all that?
I'm not on social media, which I know is crazy. I'm the only 50-plus-year-old person in the world not on it. They can hit me up at jonswire.com. My email's on there. They can download a copy of my book on there for free, or they can go to Amazon and pick it up. I'm going to be teaching at the beginning of October at UCLA Extension. It's an online class. They can register for that. It's a 2-day, 8-hour boot camp. We've also got this live event in Hollywood for anybody who either is local to LA or wants to fly in. That's going to be an amazing event, 16 hours of training. Again, these events are geared towards teaching investors how they can get started in real estate investing with confidence.
Thank you for that. I do think, again, between Northwestern and your MBA at UCLA and teaching and all that, I feel that for you, it is, you wanted the education so that you can help, so that you can be as buttoned up as possible, not for pieces of paper. Because engineering, this is not engineering, right? In the sense of you're dealing with people and it's not just numbers, but you make the math work so that you can deal with the people. And that's what I think, is your special sauce, your secret sauce. Teacher, mentor, author, investor, and agent. What John, I don't know, again, and you were a football player. So how about that? Hopefully I didn't make any fumbles during our podcast. I did my best to try to present John. I think you're an inspiration for people. And again, it's great that you have all those forms that people can connect with you to learn more. That's the game out there. John, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. And I know that the listeners will appreciate it as well. And for everyone, this is Daniel Berger with another episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Until next time, thank you very much for listening in. Thanks for joining me on The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, RE/MAX Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York Realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.